All right, we're just going to wait for everybody to kind of get it in here. All right, everybody, we're going to wait until everybody can kind of get themselves in here. See what's going on here and get myself situated with my visual aids here. I don't know if Nice is here. Are you around, Nice? Let me look and see if I can find you in Discord. I have so many windows up. You know, he may be listening. Oh, he's online, which means he's probably working and maybe listening, I think. Although I do see him sleeping. So we'll see how that's going. Let me know how the sound is. We got a lot to get into and a lot to cover. We're going to do an extension, so I'm kind of curious to know how everybody was doing as far as the Beyonce. Great, I'm glad to hear that. Hey, everybody. Okay, hi, Ortho. All right, I'm just getting one more thing straightened out here. And this is it, and then we'll be okay. Hey, Keisha, Raji. Hi, David. Nice to have you join us. Have you been able to catch up with the other ones? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're not like the books. Yeah, we don't. In fact, are you fluent in German? I bet you are. You read Ebertine and Witt's books. Okay. All right. Well, I think you're going to find that we're quite different, but we prove what we say. Well, Witt was close. Everybody else was derivative, and then nobody really understood him, but we cover that. Yeah. We're proof. You see the logo? We mean that. And if you're going to work with us, we'd like you to do your own delineation, a natal delineation as per Uranian astrology, our method. So we'll get into that in a little bit. At the end of the lecture, today's lecture is a continuation of last week's lecture, which is to further examine the synastry, because the best way, and I want everyone to understand, we're using Beyonce and Jay-Z because they're very public figures and they're very obvious, but each of you should be using these same techniques, testing them out on your own charts. Stop going after other people and things you don't know. Go into your own lives, your own charts, and really, as much as possible, try to revisit every event in your life. Even you have to show her. So we want everyone to be able to prove astrology, not just because I say and we show Beyonce and that's like a chart we can prove, and Jay-Z, these are charts that we can prove. No, The astrology is only as good in as far as every single student of astrology is able to prove the astrology out in their own lives. If you can't see your marriages, your surgeries, your moves, your education, your loves, your losses, your big changes, your growth, your development, if you cannot see these big events in your life, then astrology is a farce. What are we doing? Right? And there's no better way to learn astrology, to learn astrology than by and through using your own chart. Take my word for it. Because no one can confirm or deny information about a chart and astrology better than you can and regarding your own chart. So the idea behind using these people as a model for synastry is there is a lot of synastry between them. We can show you the synastry between them and their child, between them as business associates and partners, them as parents, them as lovers and business partners, her as a business partner and coworker and colleague with her own daughter who has a Grammy. Okay, so there is a lot of astrology with this couple. And the things that are public about them are good for review. And we can use them between them and between the founder and his relationship to Seegrin and Lebfelt and Rudolph, with everyone testing each of these methods out in your own lives, I believe that we can clearly establish the proof and the truth in astrology. So I know it's Easter weekend this weekend, and for those of you that celebrate, happy Easter. I'm not sure what your religion is, but I'm sorry about that. A little glitch in the matrix here. But anyway, it's also been Passover week, so good Pesach to my Jewish friends who observe. Are we still in Ramadan? We have a lot of religious holidays. I'm like abstaining from religious holidays. I'm down to the earth, celebrating the earth, the sun, and oh, you didn't see that nice little thing I had here. There you go. Look, for Easter weekend. There we go. That didn't go through the way it should have. Okay. Anyway, if we can get everybody to gather together and take a nice deep cleansing breath. I don't know how your week was, but my week was overwhelming. Yeah, so Ramadan, good Ramadan. So, well, they're probably eating by now on the other side of the world. Oh no, they might be back into the fast. They're having breakfast before the all-day fast. Okay. Oh, I guess it's a very holy week in the world. Okay, if we can get everybody to take a nice deep cleansing breath. A nice deep breath of unification with each other. And a nice deep breath of unification with God. Dear God, we ask that you guide each of us in our path, that we would find clarity in this Uranian astrology. Please remove the blocks of self-proclaimed experts and expertise and show us the truth in the stars. Inspire each of us to seek only divine proof in this astrology. Please strip us of all false beliefs and reveal only profound truth. Allow divine knowledge to burst forth into our highest vibration and awareness, and may we feel our spiritual connection with the celestial DNA in all of us more deeply, powerfully, and substantially than ever before. Please open our minds, our hearts, and our souls that we would each find enlightenment. And so it is, and we thank you. Amen. So if you were here last week, you remember what we were doing, right? We asked everybody to do a homework assignment, which was put them at Lenox Hill Hospital on the date of birth for Blue Ivy. So did Eddie? Hey Becky. So did everybody get their charts up? Get your charts up, by the way. Make sure you put that pull up. You can pull up more than one chart. And I made the mistake last week of not having a bunch of USA charts ready because I was running against the thing. Oh, did you go listen to it? I've had events all week, Ginger. I'm telling you, I slid in here by the skin of my teeth today for this class. Renee and Travis just left for Tennessee a couple hours ago. So it's been an all week thing trying to get them ready to leave for Tennessee. I mean, she'll be back tomorrow. I have to pick her up at the airport, but yeah. Oh, me too. I can't get enough sleep lately. And we're going to have to white glove Renee's father's house. Ah, are you feeling better now? So I just wanted to let you know, uh, yeah, I think we're all just fried. So I wanted to let you know that Nice has been working on an app rollout. And he has a couple of jobs, and this is a side gig on top of several other side gigs, which he hasn't let the other side gigs go because we all have, gig upon gig upon gig. Everybody's doing a million things, as we all know. I think we're all stretched a little thin. So what we're going to try to do here is, did anyone have any success with these charts, with this homework? So what the homework assignment was is to place these three people together in an event that makes sense and that would actually speak as to what happened that day around that time for them. We have two parents and a child. Ostensibly, you should be able to prove what happened with all three of them. And with relationship to the baby, because the baby is really a transit, the baby's chart should be able to tell you the relationship with the baby, the transiting chart, which is really a baby in this particular case. What is that baby's relationship to these people? So we should be able to find an astrological connection between these people. They're related, we know. And being able to prove out astrology is really all that matters. Synastry would be apparent in shared events, by the way. This is one of the reasons why you want to pick a solid shared event. A marriage, a divorce, a travel event, a death. Big events, not small events, big events. Birth of a child. And by the way, this doesn't work with, say, two parents, the birth of a child, and you have one that's an absentee parent who's an unwilling parent. Yes, it will work that you will see that there are problems within that relationship. But if you want to be able to learn how synastry works, start with a relationship that's had enough events in it that are public that you can test it out and now give you an idea of what it is you're looking for in your own synastry charts. This is just a guide. I expect every one of you every week to come back. You should have questions about your charts and your synastry charts. And if you don't, then we should operate under the assumption that somehow from one week to the next you have mastered synastry and Uranian astrology. Okay? If you have no questions, then you've mastered it. Anyway, let's get on with this. I hope did everybody get these dates in? You need 2 tridials of, well, actually, you don't even need the synastry. Just put the 2 tridials in, because we're not going to go over the synastry is actually going to be used with the tridial. Okay? So get that together. No, so no one was able to put these people together in any kind of true or specific way that reflected their lives? All right. Let's see what we got going on here. So every chart, every beginning, even an old pro like me, we started looking, at a famous couple. And I urge every person to do their natal delineation, by the way, as per our beginner's manual. Don't jump right into synastry. And by the way, thank you, Glenn. I was informed by him that we had a big error in the beginner's manual that had to do with the description and the delineation, because I'd been switching charts out and hadn't really decided, and we'd edited it. So I have a 6th edition. I've edited it. I believe I've fixed all of the errors. It looks the way it should. So if you could go download the 6th edition. Well, we're going to get into that. Being confused about the triple patterns is normal. You have to test them out in your own life. That's how you learn how they are. These are demonstrations of how they work and kind of what you're looking for in somebody else's chart. You then, as a homework assignment, each of you has been tasked to find triple patterns in your own lives, or will be tasked to find triple patterns in your own lives when you're ready. That comes with time. You have to test them out. You have to find the events, and then you'll know. You come every week like, yeah, well, you think that this is going to be one thing that you're going to learn in a week. I promise you that what this is these are layers of something that by week 6 it starts to gel. If you're following the classes in the order that they're in, by the 6th week in, these things that most people are confused about begin to gel. But you have to watch what we do with other people's charts, somebody famous, and then you have to test these out in your own. Yes, I know what you would like. You should come to the classes, and I will be testing and demonstrating the triple patterns out for dummies. That's the process. But today, we're looking which part of the triple pattern is. Okay, so you don't. Okay, let me ask you something. Are you here to learn astrology? You're here to learn astrology, right, Greg? So you think in 4.5 hours you're going to learn Uranian astrology? People taking them 30, 40 years, they haven't figured it out, including the people who claim to be experts that are selling the classes and courses and writing books about it. And you think in 4 classes you're going to understand this? There are books. The people that claim to be the experts didn't figure it out. I did. I can show it to you, but you have to give this a couple of weeks and follow the steps. Your natal delineation has to come in. You have to submit things. It is impatience. It's absolutely impatience. Give it 6 weeks. Submit your dates. submit your dates for your events. Submit 3 dates of 3 events of 3 things that happened to you. We approve whether or not they're good choices for events. And then we send you to work on your triple patterns. We're showing you triple patterns, or attempting to, in almost every class. Okay? So, here we go. So, if you're from another country and you're interested in translating our materials, by the way, we'd love to work with you so that you can use these materials in your native language. By all means, get in touch with us. We'd like to talk to you if you're interested in doing this in your own native language. We're absolutely willing to share our materials and go over translating and working with you. Anyway, whatever work we do in Uranian astrology, we refer to 2 formula books, one being the rules for planetary pictures and the other being Inside Aureus, which is the special Uranian software program. And that's Ruth Brumman's formula book. That's if you're English speaking. If you're a German speaker, there are lexicons and there are quite a few books from Ruth, but that's for German speakers. In the interim, we're working on a more precise language, and we're trying to repair what we believe is old translations that need updating, not only to fit the times, but because the language was brutal. It's like reading Shakespeare. You know, it's incredibly difficult to get through. So, with every chart, using the rule book, we lay the groundwork for whatever we're doing in astrology. And today's thing that we're doing in astrology, for Uranian astrology, is we're trying to connect 3 people in a particular event, the birth of their child. Number 1, this is a married couple. And they're artistic, so Mars Capito definitely fits the bill for them. There are, by the way, quite a few things that we look at in their chart. Whenever you have a child, you are taking on the responsibility of another soul. So wherever there is the birth of a child, we're always looking for Hades. And Hades can be standalone, either Hades or Admetos, or Hades and Admetos, but definitely Hades. To begin with, childbirth is painful for most of us. Very few women have a painless childbirth. So we are looking for certain things that we know, but we know that because I'm a little bit of an expert, and before I begin, I come and I look and I search in the rule book. And it says here that there's 41 instances of birth. Now, I don't know what you guys did, but I scrolled until I found one that seemed to fit them. And the reason this one seemed to fit them is because of who they are. This is really a society. It's a well-known family. This is something that is very public. It changes their public image. It's a change in their art. It's a change in their family dynamics. They're not just a married couple. These people are a walking corporation, an enterprise. So when we look at Beyonce's chart for the day that Blue Ivy was born, what we really want to see is if we can see anything to the naked eye that would draw our eye and make us look at something. And we already know that we're looking for Pluto Capito and that that's going to be in here at some point, but you can't just have a baby and have one midpoint. There are multiple midpoints between these people and half sums that line up. And one of the standouts is Node Mars. And Node Mars is a sexual relationship, and this particular node, Mars, lines up to Mercury, so they're talking about it, Neptune, Jupiter, Neptune. So whatever their benefit is, whatever their fortune is, whatever their luck is, they really want to keep this private and away from the world at large, and not just, which is why nobody really knows her time. We see the Mercury up here again, but take note of the Hades. So we have Hades and Hades, and the third Hades is over here. By the way, Greg, that's a triple pattern. Here is the natal node Mars. Here's the directed node Mars. Yep, the Hades is on his too. Well, this is hers. This is Beyonce's. And this chart out here, this is Blue Ivy. Remember that this chart on the outskirts is a transit, but it's also Blue Ivy's chart. So she has karma with her mother. She comes into the world with public karma and people talking about her. Even people doing her astrology chart. How many astrologers did try to do Blue Ivy's chart when Blue Ivy was born? So certainly a sexual relationship is part of what gets them here. But we need more. We need that Pluto Capito to line up in a triple pattern. Does it? They align. So this is a triple pattern, but also they're sharing an axis point, and this one's easy to see because it's a midpoint. This is also easy to see. It's just that these are within a degree or two of each other. They're still sharing an axis point. See? That's the issue of a triple pattern. They have to share an axis point. Once you know that they're sharing an axis point, you know what you're looking at. The node Mars was easy to see, and always keep within 1 or 2 degrees for an event. Here's the Hades. This is a triple pattern. They share an axis point. That's why. See, if I were to move the dial, do you see this? See, you're confused because of this. This is still a triple pattern. The distance between these two, they're equidistant from each other. But the transit is on top of the directed. So that puts it on the same axis point, sharing it. Now, what's important, and this is why I'm telling you, it's important to learn how to look at this chart, how to eyeball a chart. All of you were tasked with doing this and working together. Nobody came to me. Nobody tried to work with me. Nobody. In the last minutes today, I was like, oh, damn, I really need to put this together, actually late last night, because I had so much to do. So, do these connect, and do they make sense? It's all of them. You don't see that? It's that the node Mars is on the axis point, that the Pluto Capito is on the axis point, and that the Hades shares an axis point. You don't see that? Look, here's one triple pattern. They're sharing this axis point. That's the node Mars. Here's your Pluto Capito. Are you all doing this in your own charts? Hades is there. You just don't see it. Hades runs right into the node Mars. Here's the node Mars over here, too. See? They fill it out. It tells the story. You have to get the three of them to share an axis point. 3 half thumbs, 3 planets. You have to get them to agree either by symmetry and in some sort of squared out symmetrical pattern or some sort of midpoint. And your axis point is always going to be dictated by the arrows. The arrows are the axis point. That's what the arrows are there for. So we put, if you go into your rules for planetary pictures and you look at node Mars, that's a sexual relationship. Because you're supposed to do the homework and move the dial. You're supposed to pull the chart up. You're supposed to actually try this. That's how you're going to learn. You're supposed to look up node Mars in the rule book and see that that is a sexual relationship. It's also a marriage. It's an artistic marriage. You're supposed to recall that Hades is problems and karma and pain and things from the past. And if you bring a child into the world, clearly you have a past relationship with them. They have a past relationship with you. Is this gelling now? Hold on one second. I'm extremely uncomfortable, guys. Just let me get situated here. Oh, okay. My right hip hurts like hell. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's get this back up there. Hold on a second. I have a little bit of a situation here. Okay. Did you get the charts up? Here's the thing you should be doing. If you really want to come to better understand this, that's what the app is for, especially when we tell you to get the charts up. Get the charts up. Run the same half thumbs we're telling you to run. Don't take the patterns off. And then you'll use the same practice within your own. So if you've pulled up her chart with Jay-Z's chart and you have 2 tridials set for those days, you can check the node Mars. You can check the Pluto Capito. And the fact that you don't see the Hades is because you're not moving the dial around. It's pretty clear. You can eyeball it. Does that help a little bit? I mean, we're going to work with her chart in the app in a little bit. To any one of those points. If Hades If Hades is at the 60, the natal, and the directed and the transit is at the 0, then where's the midpoint between them? Don't they all agree? Aren't they sharing an axis point? You really don't see how they're connected to the same axis point and how that's a midpoint structure? You're always looking for symmetry or a midpoint structure. You need one or the other. All right? Does that make more sense now? Also, as you start doing your own events, you'll come to see this a little bit more and understand this a little bit more. So why you can't tell that that's a triple pattern? Or you can't tell that they make a midpoint? Or that they share an axis point? That 60 and 0 share an axis point? With the node Mars, with the Pluto Capito? You really? So what do you think those 3 lines are? Could you draw a triangle inside those 3 lines? Is this equidistant from this if we wanted to do it that way? You need the dial to be moved? You literally need the dial to be moved? You can't see that? Okay, so you can't move the dial? We haven't made this available for you? Okay. So if you move the dial to in between the Hades, find out what degree it lands on between the 3 Hades. One is the node Mars. That's the Hades. You can't tell that? Here's the natal, and here's the directed and the transit. We're trying to find a bunch of midpoints. Weren't there those 3 different half sums? Actually, 1 singular planet and 2 half sums. Well, these are drawn by themselves, but it doesn't matter how they line up. What matters is that they do. The axis point, not the focal point, the axis points tell the story. So there's 4 points here on this dial. Those midpoints are just the beginning of learning how to read a chart. That axis point was so you could see it. It's there. I don't need to draw it. I know that if I move the dial between the 2 Hades, that it matches up with the node Mars. And that their relationship to each other, all of them, would be to work in a really a disgusting field. Beautiful art is great, but the field, the business is terrible. And she's a young child, so they have to protect her. but the Hades align. That child's transiting Hades aligns with her mother's directed Hades. Their karma aligns. Her mother's natal Hades and directed Hades lines up at that time with the daughter's natal Hades. They share an axis point. Here's the axis point. You think the axis point is here. It's not. This is the axis point. The arrows. These are triple patterns. The way they line up, because of the way they line up, because of the story we're looking to tell. What is node? You have to pull out the book. What is node Mars? Isn't it also a working relationship? Right. And with Hades, it would be a working relationship out in the world, because it's node Mars out to the Aries point, correct? Do you think the entertainment business is all champagne and award ceremonies, or do you think that there's a lot of really dirty work in it, like Hades? And don't you think that somebody who achieves her level of stardom and his, and even this child who comes in to the world, she's like not even 12 and she has a Grammy. You don't think that there's some karma to that, and that it would be or apply very importantly to the Aries point? Their work, her birth. What about Pluto Capito? What's Pluto Capito? I mean, if that child isn't karma born from sexual congress, I don't know what it is. But look deeply. What else is there? To change in a family, but there's a big paragraph in Pluto Capito, isn't it? And it pertains really more, yeah, growing a club, an artistic club or organization, out in the world. Huge change in human society. Let's take a look at what this is now, so everybody can see this. Primarily, it's a birth. So we've established that there is a birth as the result of sexual congress. A couple she's known for her overt sexuality out in the world, him for his lyrics. They are very tied to her mother, to his mother, to tradition. She has made that a habit. This is very much a family affair. Her father had been her manager. He employs quite a few people within their family, providing they're bringing the work. So this is what? It's also a partnership in transition. Well, if you've never had a child, let me tell you something. Bringing a baby home, that's going to change your partnership. It changes everything about your relationship. It says changes in the human society and human partnership. to clear up something in common with others, development of art, a growing club. So we've proven the birth, and we've also proven that the child's node Mars, on the day that she was born, her natal node Mars was lining up to a double pattern of her mother's node Mars, and that lined up to Hades, and that indicated from the time that she was born that she would be brought into work, somewhat unpleasant work. How do we know this? It's a working community, a concerted action, connection through work or activities. The child is the result of a marriage, very erotic relationship, and sexual union. Now, I'm not saying they're together for evil activities, but they have to watch evil activities around them, and they absolutely have to watch evil activities around her. She's a young, pretty child in a very dirty business. And I think that as her parents, they are acutely aware of how much they need to keep an eye on her constantly, watch who's around her. Hmm. What, you don't think that there's the selling of children and children's sexuality in Hollywood and in music out in the world? That this child and how she grows up, that there aren't people. I'm not saying her parents see her that way, but you don't think we're marketing little girls with makeup and high heels and long nails? Who, Jay-Z and Beyonce? I don't listen to entertainment news, so I can't really tell you anything. I'm not even watching any news anymore. So do you understand how this ties them together right there at her birth? We she's got the kid's got a Grammy. She's worked in the music business. I've worked in the music business. I promise you it's seedy. No matter how much they watch her, and they keep an eye on her because it's seedy. Okay. Yeah, her parents know to keep an eye on her. Her parents know keep eyes on her at all times. You don't let a child in the entertainment business out of the parent sight or an adult sight with anyone, for not even 5 minutes. Not even really 2 seconds. You don't you keep your eyes on a child in the entertainment business at all times. There are a lot of young stars who come out and they talk about how dirty the business is. Drew Barrymore was, drinking and drugging as a child. Yeah, resentment, her success too. But I can tell you, in this family, Hades is just, there's a lot of karma in this relationship with these people. And in particular, Beyonce. Don't forget that Beyonce has that Admetos equals Hades. But you are right. It's definitely envy and resentment because of her success. This child got a Grammy. You got people out there in the music business doing backup for like 20, 30 years, and they're like, I didn't even get invited to the Grammys, let alone get a Grammy. And I'm busting my ass traveling all over the world. In the meantime, she's traveling like an A-lister with her A-list parents. So I'm sure that there are people who envy her nepotism. I don't think that they would demonstrate that or say that to her parents, but I'm sure that there are. But her mother started out very young in talent shows and things like that, and her mother's made all of these things available to her, whatever she can to help train her. Anyway, let's move on to Jay-Z. And we're going to work with these charts in a little bit. All right. So if you've done Jay-Z's chart, you'll see that this is Jay-Z's chart. I'll let everybody look. Make sure you got the same meridian ascendant. You remember Jay-Z's data? 12/4/1969 at 12:10 a.m. in Bedford-Stuyvesant, New York. And if you forgot when Blue Ivy was born, she was born on 01/07, January 7th, 2012, at around 7:50 p.m. Nobody's really sure about the time. I think she's born a little bit earlier than that. I just haven't had time to do a rectification. I should really rectify it with the Grammy and a couple of other events she's been a part of. Okay, so now Jay-Z, his relationship to this is different. He's not the person in labor, physical labor, and Node Mars is hard work, hard labor too. By the way, that's difficult labor, difficult work, unpleasant work. I assure you, labor is unpleasant. Okay, even if you get a baby at the end, it's not a cakewalk. So where's Jay-Z's node Mars? Is that going to line up here? Can we match it? Can we see this node Mars here, and then the node Mars in direction, and the node Mars? Do you guys see this from up here? The node Mars down here. I can't move this dial because this is in a picture. So let's keep going. She had Pluto. She had Pluto Capito. Remember? That's his Pluto Capito. And you're like, oh, but that's not lining up to his Pluto. No, no, no. It doesn't have to. What has to happen is that the bulk of these have to share an axis point. Don't forget, what you're trying to do is put them sharing an axis point. And the sharing of the axis point is telling you the story of what happened between these people. What is the shared relationship? By the way, are you noticing that Jay-Z's Hades is here too at the Aries point? Not just Beyonce and not just Blue Ivy's, his directed Hades. So here he has another triple pattern. Those are his Hades. I'm like, well, wait a minute, something's off. That's why you match people together. But is it really off? Or do these charts actually really connect the story together? The only thing that's missing is Jay-Z's Aries point. And if we stop and we take, which we're going to do in a few minutes, you're looking for a 1 to 2 degree orb. You're looking at this axis point and what this axis point is for him as the father, as a partner in this Pluto Capito. He's the head of this family. Watch this. What's up here in Bay's chart? Mercury. What's down here? Mercury. Where's her other Mercury? Right there. Jay-Z is probably best known for his lyrics and communicating. And when you lay these charts on top of each other, the way you should, by the way, that's when you're able to really see what this relationship is between these people. Right here is the final fill out, which is his Aries point, what was happening to him that year out in the world. But if you keep going across this axis point, all you're going to do is get the story. You're going to find her moon, Mars, their marriage. If we keep doing this, which by the way we're going to do this, we're going to see that for both of them their Venuses line up because this was the birth of a girl. There are always going to be many, many different triple patterns. When they align within a degree or so and you're sharing an axis point, that's great. That's wonderful. They don't always have to be exactly on the same axis point. When they're sharing the same axis point, you're saying, I have that same experience as you. So when two people are madly in love, Moon, Venus, they're sharing the same axis point. When one of them is in labor and having a baby and the other one is the father and the head of the family and trying to figure press releases and how to navigate keeping things quiet from paparazzi because they're following her. She had already had a miscarriage. Do you guys remember that? So when you're doing the chart of someone, you have to think, whose chart are you doing? By the way, if you have any comments or questions about this and our work, please like, comment, and share our work, but definitely leave your comments. And if you have a question now about anything we just did, let us know. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course subscribe to us on YouTube. But if you have questions about what we just did, we're about to go actually work these charts. So that's the time to ask a question about these charts. I'm about to close this out, and I have their charts open. But don't forget to like our stuff and comment. Okay, guys. Now, if you're first time here and you haven't joined, please join the app. It's completely free. Don't forget, you have to confirm your email. A lot of times, because it says free, the email confirmation goes to a promotional trash or spam file. Check your promotional trash and spam files when you sign up for the app and wait to get the email send a confirmation email, and then you'll be accepted. If you're interested in taking classes with us and you're interested in doing the work, this means you're going to do your natal delineation, you're going to participate in the class. Yeah, they share a lot. We're going to be doing more of their charts. We're not done with their charts. We're not even close to done with their charts. They have a lot of synastry. Plus, they have 2 other children. They had another birth, which that's a time that was registered. TMZ actually posted the birth certificate. How they got a hold of it, I don't know, but they did. And I'm sure whoever released that got fired because they can track that nowadays. So, all right. Anyway, if you haven't signed up for the app, please sign up for the app. It's completely free. Don't forget to confirm your email. If you haven't confirmed your email, you won't be able to get into the app. Once you've confirmed your email, all you have to do to get into the app is click on the Uranian app. You have your options up here: natal directed, tridial, and synastry. Make sure you pick and choose which one you want. Follow this as your graph for how to put in the month, the day, the year, the time. This is not in the 24 hours. So if it's 8 p.m., notice that says p.m. or a.m. Okay. From here, you hit tab or enter. You can type in the exact hospital in the town where somebody was born. Then just hit this search box. Do not try to type in the longitude and the latitude. Just type this in. Yes, I'm not using Solar Fire for this class, and you can't see the triple pattern in Solar Fire like you can see here. Do you think you could see that triple pattern with Beyonce in Solar Fire? As easy? And this is free. And everyone using something that's uniform is helpful to the process. Why don't you try? You're telling me that visually you don't realize you can't do it? Solar Fire is too busy. It's not a clean enough dial. You're not going to be able to see it that well. There are a lot of books that they use Solar Fire as the in the books that was the actual software that they used. Why didn't they do this? Those that can do. That's why we designed this app actually for the class. We need the clean dial. We want everything to be uniform. We want to make sure it's the same longitude and latitude. The charts look the same. It's really better for educational purposes. So you're welcome to use Solar Fire on your own, but for the purposes of this class, you're going to want to log into the app and use the app. Anyway, if people are interested in taking the classes, then we have to adjust your permissions. You end up getting full use of the app. Anybody who's a researcher or taking classes with us and studying for the points of time that you're working with us, and while you're studying with us, you get full app permission because we need it for the work and for the development of the work. At any rate, don't forget, just hit this. Don't try to input the longitude and latitude. Simply touch this, and that'll fill it out for you. When you come down here, put the date, the time of your event. Again, hit tab. Put the place of your event, the exact place, in fact, the exact address if you know. Again, click right here, and that'll fill out the longitude and the latitude, and click refresh. Okay? Now, this is Beyonce's chart. So, we had a question where you couldn't see the Hades, right? So here's the Hades, and here's the node Mars, right there. We're going to draw those lines, too. So they line up like this. They line up like that. They line up like this. And they line up like that. Why does it become part of the node Mars? Because the natal Hades, the directed Hades, and the transiting Hades fall on her node Mars, and node Mars. That's why. That's why it applies. Does that make sense to you now, Greg? That even without these node Mars, their Hades apply. The less they all line up. Look. Toggle switch them. There's the Hades. Take the Hades out. Put the node Mars in. They all have to line up. Not one, all of them. The essence of astrology and what Alfred Witte was trying to explain to astrologers and teach astrologers, and I think in German, based on my German friend and I, we spent some time this past week really like talking about the difficulty in translations, and I'm sending this poor person back saying, can you look for this and see if this makes sense? Like, I think that he was talking to astrologers and they were thinking with astrological minds, and he says, but the math was astrology. Yes, it was. But they had never done math before like this. Astrologers had not been tasked with doing math and lining up, say, Arabic parts. They knew about Arabic parts, they knew about aspects, but they didn't know about making the aspects agree with each other or even the Arabic parts agree with each other. Witte was the first one who said, well, it has to follow the natural laws of science and math. In the language and the natural laws of science and math, it's the Fibonacci sequence. And because he was a mathematician and he knew where math and pi and the Pythagorean theorem had come from, and how planets, by the way, in those days and times, they were able to use the math of the same math to determine the orbit of planets. If you use that same math is just as accurate as telescopes. The math that they used, it's ancient Babylonian math. It's sexagesimal math. The system, the mathematical system used by the ancient Babylonians, which all astrology is based on it, is the 60 base, the sexagesimal base of math. And in using this math, he was able to come to the conclusion that you need more. You need a dowsing rod, or you need focal points, or you need the rule of 3. You need these things to agree. Because what the Fibonacci sequence says is that patterns repeat themselves. the importance of patterns that repeat themselves. It's important in math, it's important in science, it's important in psychology, it's important in nature. That's why they call it the sequence of nature. And this is what he was trying to explain to them, is if we get to the root of the problem with astrology, which is you need more. We discussed that in another show in class, that there wasn't enough with just a contact in houses, that their system was failing them. They hadn't been able to prove anything. And when Vitae came along, Vitae said, well, I believe you're probably onto something, but you must have some missing pieces or parts. And during the Spanish flu pandemic, in a lockdown, it would appear that he determined and figured out what it was. And he derived the formula book. He alone sat and worked out these formulas. And the four trans-Neptunes, the four final trans-Neptunes, which are Apollon, Admetos, Vulcanus, and Poseidon, he was not in agreement. During his lifetime, he fought vigorously to not admit those into his book. He wouldn't allow it. He didn't permit it. And I believe that the disagreement was in the math, that these astrologers didn't understand the math. And quite a few years after he died, they published the book. And I believe to some extent they figured out a portion of his math, but they didn't figure out what he was trying to say all along. And this was a man who was trying to explain something to people who didn't understand it in writing over 100 years ago. That's the writing you have of Vitae. We have the papers where he was trying to explain how he derived these theories, where they came from, to people who really, I think for the most part, didn't want to accept it. And I think he retreated to his work, to his solitude. He worked out the formula book. It would appear that way. Certainly the evidence points to that. There's nothing but a bunch of everybody disagreeing with him in a bunch of papers. That's what Der Mensch is. It's a lot of disagreements, a few people with a few portions of support, very minuscule. And then we see the rule book come out, which is his and his alone. So I've used the last four TMPs enough. I believe that in the end, they figured out the math of how he arrived at the TMPs, which was the ancient Babylonian math. He used that same theory, which, by the way, that's what the ephemeris is to determine, well, what's the orbit of these hypothetical planets, or what's the orbit? How do we determine this? We don't have a telescope. So he's using this prism of light, and he's trying to explain, look, with this method, we can see everything. We can see color. We can see math. We can see the orbit of planets. We can music, the harmonics of music. I believe the man probably played an instrument. Certainly his astrology leans to that. So, Greg, getting back to your issue, this is its own triple pattern right here. Right here is a triple pattern. So I'm going to mark that with a big red, here, hold on, line. Actually, not a line. I'm going to give it a big red dot, a big fat red dot. Right here. That's a focal point of a triple pattern. And then here's your Hades right here. So we click on this and we go to the Hades and we want the triple pattern for the Hades, which is right there. And you're like, but that's the focal point. Right there. It is. Just so happens to agree with this. So this is already being factored into the equation. Do you understand that now? This has made its own midpoint. These two structures, the node, the Mars, the node, Mars. Sometimes it's a midpoint in a different way, but in this particular case, that's what it looks like. Now, in Beyonce's case, sorry, shouldn't be doing that. There it is. There's her Pluto Capito. The first focal point is something in the natal chart. It's down here. You're not keeping track. You're not understanding. That's node Mars. Do you see Hades right there? That's the focal point. They're all going to share an axis point. Okay? When we're done, do they share an axis point? Is Hades right here? And is Hades right there? Isn't that Hades a focal point too? No, as a matter of fact, very often the focal point is not, the planet and the focal point are not the same. They have to align in some kind of way here. The planets that you're using as your formula, in some kind of way, node, Hades, the karma. Hades has to be in the picture because of karma. She brings this child into the world. They gotta jump through hoops to make sure paparazzi doesn't catch them. They probably made a very, very closed decision, like, let's go to New York. We can order in. Nobody will see us at the door. We can send staff out. Nobody will know we're there. And when it's time, we're within minutes to a hospital. So you see, we're looking for node Hades. This is just the half sum. And then this right here, this is the Hades. Here's her node Hades half sum, just so you know. Now, this is the triple pattern for node Hades. We're not looking for the triple pattern for node Hades. We're looking for the triple pattern for node Mars equals Hades. Node Hades is something else. Does that make it more clear? We're not looking for the node Hades. We're looking for node Mars Hades. Are you looking at your rule book? Do you see Node Mars in the rule book? You see Hades down there? You see Node Mars Hades on the chart? Okay. Now do you see? It's Node Mars, and then Hades agrees. So that triple pattern. Yeah. You think you're the only one? Greg, snap out of it, buddy. The experts wrote books and they're wrong. What are you worried about? You're slow to pick it up? They were too. Like, they still don't get it. What are you, like 3 weeks into this, 4 weeks into this? They got 30 years. I would have thought they would have picked it up by now. So wrap your mind around this. The node Mars is the half sum. Hades is the triple planet. Do you get that? We're not looking at the node Hades and trying to find Mars. We're looking at node Mars. We're looking at the sexual relationship that created karma. Is that making more sense to you now? Also the artistic working relationship, working with problems, repairing error, reparation. Ringing a bell now? And by the way, if you don't get it, probably somebody else doesn't. Node Mars is here, down here, right? That's a triple pattern. They're sharing an axis point. We need Hades. This is a relationship that is born from karma. There's karma here. They bring a child. This is the moment they bring a child into the world. Her, the parents, and the child all have karma. All of their Hades line up. His Hades lines up with her Hades. All their Hades line up. The child has one Hades. Both the mother and the child have, or the mother and the father have two Hades. They have their natal and their directed. We're looking at node Mars, which is here. Node Mars. There's the natal, the directed, and the transit right there, sharing an axis point. Here's the Hades. To fill it out, it's right there on this side, but to fill it out, there it is there. There's the directed Hades, and there's the transiting Hades. So these share that axis point. They create their own midpoint. They're creating those three planets, that half sum with the third planet is creating its own midpoint or its own symmetrical pattern. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for something that's creating it. You're looking for the natal, the directed, and the transit to create its own midpoint or its own symmetrical pattern. And then the focal point is something else. The focal point is what you need to find to prove it's a symmetrical pattern. That's what the focal point is about. Can I prove this is symmetrical? Visually, I think I've proven it. You're not understanding that's what it is because you need a little work with the triple pattern. They connect to each other. They make their own midpoint. All of those things make their own midpoint. So the half sum has its own triple pattern and focal point, and that the half sum, the natal directed and transiting half sum, lines up to the natal directed and transiting Hades. That's a triple pattern. That creates its own midpoint structure. That's sacred geometry, the repetition of patterns. Everything has to agree with each other over and over and over again. And how do they agree with each other? They agree with each other if they make a symmetrical pattern whereby they share an axis point, and they do. In this particular case, they all make a midpoint and they share an axis point. Yes, they flow together. They create their own midpoint structure. They agree. They're sharing, and the midpoint structure that they make, they're sharing an axis point. That's what's happening there. Probably make that a little bit thinner and in black. See? What you're always looking for is to find agreement in synastry and even in events. Everything in astrology has to find some agreement. This half sum agrees with that trans-Neptune. They also agree with several other things. They agree with the Pluto Capito. They agree with the Mercury. Watch. See this Mercury? There are many, what I told you is there are many triple patterns on the day of an event. Yeah, it just happens. It appears to be on the axis. Look at all the Mercuries. They're all right there. Natal Mercury is right there. Okay? Here's transiting Mercury. So where's the directed Mercury here? Right here. So let's take that out. Watch. That's really going to mess you up. Watch this. One is Hades and the other one is Mercury. You don't think there was a lot of really nasty talk about this family out in the world? All to the Aries point, by the way. Look, her solar arc sun is really on the same axis, sharing the axis point. Jay-Z's is down here. See? No, that's not Jay-Z's chart. This is somebody else's chart. Jay-Z's is down there. See? You have to sit and do the chart. If you sit and do the charts and you play with the dial, and then you also test something out in your own life, an event you absolutely know happened. Take a death. You add, like, you know, I know exactly where I was. I know exactly what happened. I know how I found out. You take something like that, or you take a marriage. You take the birth of a child if you're present. You take a big event, and you find a big event in your own life. When you find a big event in your own life, as you're scrolling through the rule book with the half sum, because every search you do, you're going to be using the rule book as your search, okay? You're going to find a third planet that makes sense sometimes. Sometimes just the half sum tells the story, just the half sum lining up. But sometimes you need the third planet to line up to finish telling the story. That was what Vitae understood. Vitae understood we're going to need like a dowsing rod. We need something else. In the event that there's an empty space, by the way, this was so poorly translated. In the event that there's an empty space, nothing's happening. you need to connect something in that empty space, that would be one of these things. I cannot begin to tell you how astrologers blew that writing about that. The empty space is supposed to be filled out with the dowsing rod or the focal point, or a planet that applies, or something that has that energy. Do not forget to use the guide that's inside the beginner's manual. All right? There's a graph. Ortho was very helpful and sent me the foundation of a graph, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome!" So I threw it into the beginner's manual, which is very helpful, by the way. In fact, if I were you guys, I'd print that page up and hold it somewhere until you can commit that energy to memory. Okay, so what I'd really like all of you to do is to go through an event of yours where someone else was involved and try to line up your planets with that individual's planets in an event. See what you can do about that. When we come back here next week, see if we can, get in touch with me, not on Friday or Saturday, like Thursday or something, no later than Thursday, because I'm going to have to look at this stuff and examine it. So see what you can do about getting an event that occurred with somebody else whose time, date, information you have. Okay, so use good data and see what you can do about putting yourself with someone else. And if you can figure out what was really going on between the two of you, not just if you got married, but it's like, well, did we feel the same? Was this just suffering, or was this powerful karmic bond between both of us? Or was this just a growth experience, a learning experience? See what you can glean from that. The events of your past will teach you way more astrology than anything you're going to be doing where you're trying to predict something or looking at a stranger's events. By all means, try to keep up with Beyonce and with Jay-Z's Synastry, because it's teaching you different methods and systems. We've seen, the Hades agrees and equals the Admitos. So that's another way to say, wow, they equal each other, but we don't have a line system for that. Which, by the way, that's the thing NICE is working on. We have a big upgrade coming to the app. Like, shocking. So stay tuned. He can't be in two places. We have to choose where we need him the most. Believe me, I miss him too. We send each other little messages and memes and gifts back and forth. and we send each other messages about, remember we were worried about this? Oh, guess what? It happened. Just charts we read. So we have very brief contact with each other. But he's working on it, and it'll be out pretty soon, and I'm looking forward to it. So there's some surprises in store for everyone. Now, Greg had some really good questions today. And the questions he had are those of a person who's not really understanding this triple pattern. And the concept that the natal, this is the thing you have to remind yourself. The natal, the directed, and the synastry have to share an axis point. So the Hades, if they share an axis point by themselves, they're fine. And in that particular case, you didn't understand that if they all make up a symmetrical pattern, that's what you need. They were already in contact with each other. The node Mars agreed with all the Hades. And by the way, I would urge you to go look at your contacts with people where you have Hades contacts with people. Hades is a very misunderstood trans-Neptune. Hades represents reparation and karma and work and part of this astrology. It's one of the key components and trans-Neptune that represents this astrology. And if this astrology is something that has an effect in your life or changes you or is important in your life, then you're going to have a very strong Uranus, Apollon, Hades structure in your chart that's going to tell a story about what this astrology is to you. The Hades Apollon is the research end of it. The Uranus Apollon is the astrology part of it. The combination of the three is to be a Uranian astrologer, to research the astrology and to repair the astrology. That's what Vitae was trying to do. He researched and repaired, and he was the architect of Hades and its determining factor. I think the German was rigid, and that was a little bit complicated. But anyway, this has been a 90-minute class. I've had a very, very big week. I loaded, as we all did, and Stephen and I never got to the store today, and we need to get a couple of gallons of water. Easter is tomorrow, so we're actually going to run out before sunset. I'm going to run to the grocery store and come back. I'm going to grab something to eat. And for those of you that want to hang out on the server and do some work, I promise you I'm going to be back. I'll be hanging out on the server, and I'll do some work with some of you. But for now, I think that we've pretty much covered everything we needed to cover. We'll be back here next week. Thank you all for showing up. We appreciate your time and your attention, and we'll be back doing a little more of that. And between now and next week, I'd like to see some of you examine your Hades in your relationships. Where is Hades in your relationship? And you're welcome very much. Where is Hades in your relationship to Uranus Apollon? By the way, you all need to be examining what your relationship Uranus Apollon is to other people in this work. Okay? So we'll see all of you next week. We'll hear from some of you on the server. We'll be back. Thank you all very much. I'm going to run out and grab some water and a couple of things at the grocery store before the sun is just blaring in my eyes because I had no chance to do anything getting Travis out of town. Okay. And we'll be back. Yes. Thank you. It's nice to see you. So don't forget, check on the old classes, by the way. If you haven't, if you've just joined, go back through the old classes because they're kind of building up to teaching you Uranian astrology. You're all welcome. And Greg, if you have problems, I'll be on the server in a little bit. We'll see you guys next week, and the rest of you will see me on the server. Ciao, ciao. Uranus and Apollon is astrology. Turtle spirit, flutes. Uranus Apollon is astrology. Uranus Apollon Hades is Uranian astrology. Hades Apollon is research, occult research. That's why the three of them together. So the Uranus Apollon axis point is just astrology. Hades Apollon is research, things that need reparation. The combination of Uranus Apollon Hades in your chart is going to indicate where your position is with Uranian astrology. You need Uranus, Apollon, and Hades for the Uranian astrology. Okay? All right, my people, I will see you next week. It's goodbye this time.